Hello everyone and welcome, I'm Seras from Gaming, and today I'll be bringing you a very fun turret engineer build. The build has great defense, a ton of CC, lots of boons and some good damage. It's very easy to run and can be quite enjoyable as it allows you to think more carefully in combat. Anyway, enough of that, let's get into the build. First up for the build, I'll cover the equipment I use in TPVP and then well.The in PvE. In TPVP I use the Soldier's Amulet with Melandru Ruins. This allows me to be super survivable in there without giving up much offense. The Soldiers gives us great power, which is nice, because our weapon in the build is a rifle, which is a power weapon in itself. And it also gives us some good toughness and vit as well, which makes us pretty hard to kill. The Melandru Ruins help in fighting against condition builds, as it reduces their durations by 25%. It also helps us with the stuns, as it reduces them by 25% as well. The ruins add some additional toughness and vit to increase our sturdiness, which is great too. For the sigils, I take the sigils of Purity and Generosity. Even though our crit chance is low, we get Fury often enough from our allies to allow us to make use of the Generosity. It's a pretty strong sigil in itself. It's basically the same as the Purity one, except it's on crit instead of on a normal hit. And it transfers the condition to the enemy instead of just making it disappear. It's pretty good. If you want to make better use of the sigil, you can swap out your Melandru for Alyssa. You're giving up a bit of defense, but you're also you're getting more Condi cleanse in the long run as well. One of the things with this build is because you're running turrets, you don't really have too much Condi cleanse in itself. I mean, you do have the chance to convert boons into, to convert Condis into boons when they cast on you, but that's not always going to happen, so you can't rely on that. You've mainly got your turret and your sigils cleansing them away. Generally though, you're sturdy enough to not get killed by the Condis just from your sheer amount of health, and you'll end up killing them before they kill you. For the well.The build and PvE side of things, we use Soldiers for our armor and the Berserk Valkyrie hybrids for our accessories. For our ruins, we want the superior ruins of the Centaur. The ruins, they give extra swiftness, which is very nice. They increase our power and also reduce the duration of incoming cripples by 50%. For our weapons, we want to use the Berserker stats on it, and we want to take the Superior Sigil of Purity and Superior Sigil of Bloodlust. The reason why we use the Bloodlust over Generosity in the well.The and PvE side of things is it's more reliable in that setting than it is in the TPVP setting, and also the fact that the Generosity is really expensive and its price continues to increase to the stage due to there being no generation of it in the game at the moment. So you're looking at 50 gold per one. Right, that there covers the equipment, so let's move on to the skills. In this section here, I'll be covering our utility skills that we use in the build. First up, we have our healing skill, where we take Healing Turret. Healing Turret is an amazing heal regardless of what build we're running. It's a bit more involving than the other heals, as it has 3 stages. For the first stage, when you activate it, it heals you for a decent amount and then applies regeneration to you and your allies. Activating it again triggers the same amount of direct heals, and then it also triggers another AoE regen and cleanses 2 conditions from you. If you trigger the overcharge as soon as it goes down, you'll be able to get it to use it straight away. Otherwise, you have to wait a few seconds for the skill cycle of the turret to go ahead. You'll be able to see it from the puffy smoke on the ground when it activates. And when it's done this, you can detonate it to get some further healing, AoE splash healing, because detonate's a blast finisher. Also, since we have accelerant packed turrets, that also does some damage, a decent amount, and it does a knockback as well. If you wish, you can pick it back up for a shorter cooldown, but I like to use it offensively as we do take accelerant packed turrets in this build. The toolkit skill from the healing turret is a nice AoE water field. You can couple it with your mini blast finishers for some nice healing, and you can also couple it with your elite finisher from your number 5 skill on the rifle. In our next slot, we take Rocket Turret. Rocket Turret fires an AoE rocket that hits pretty hard with 1500 range. Because of our traits, it also grants retaliation to us and our allies within 600 of it. It's best to place it in TVP a little bit outside of the circles, so it's not in cleave range, but it's still close enough to grant you retaliation, and the overcharge can reach you in a decent amount of time because it operates by arcing arrow upwards when you overcharge it. I prefer the rocket turret over the rifle turret as it has a nice AoE to it, and I find its overcharge effect more useful than the rifle turret. With the toolkit of the rocket turret, you get a nice missile that you can fire. It works best at close up because then it hits straight away and it does huge damage. For our next turret we take Thumper Turret. Thumper Turret is a very high HP turret which allows us to make good use of our metal plating trait and auto tool installation. It works best when placed in the center of a point in TPVP, as its overcharge can launch enemies out from the center of the circle. Due to our traits, it provides us and our allies with protection, making it very strong indeed. Its normal attack is an AoE around it with a size of 360. It deals a decent amount of damage per pulse and applies cripple as well, making it very effective when placed to defend a spot or making a zone for us to fight in. Its toolkit provides us with an extra AoE damage blast finisher that also acts as a stun break and gives us some short duration stability to get out of being chain stunned. Next up we have the Flame Turret. Flame Turret is a medium range turret at 750 range. It applies burning per hit and is AoE, making it very nice when defending some ground. It fires every 3 seconds, giving it decent uptime on burning, and its active effect is a smoked field which helps us as it acts as a black powder like from the Thief, except it lasts for 5 seconds. We can also use our blast and leap finisher to get stealth from it too in the smoke field. Its toolkit throws a ball of magma which creates a pulsing AoE fire field that applies burning. You can use it to stack might with your mini blast finishers. For our elite skill we have Supply Crate. Supply Crate is an awesome elite skill as it stuns, does damage, is a blast finisher and provides a few medkits for extra healing, coupled with a net turret, a healing turret and a flame turret. The turrets are also affected by our turret traits as well, so they're harder to kill, they give us buffs, and they do deal damage when killed, which increases the potential damage of Supply Crate by over 3000, which is fantastic. For skill number 1 on the rifle, we have Hip Shot. Hip Shot is a basic auto attack skill and it deals a nice bit of damage and pierces targets by default, allowing you to hit up to 5 enemies in a row. It gives some nice AoE, some nice multi-target power, and the piercing really helps in fighting targets that have a lot of summons such as Spirit Rangers, Mesmers, and Minion Necromancers. For skill number 2, we have Net Shot. Net Shot is an awesome CC skill that fires out an immobilizing net on the target, hence the name Net Shot. The cooldown on the skill is 10 seconds, allowing it to be used very frequently. It works well when used after some hard CC on the target, as they can't dodge out of the way when you shoot it at them. For skill 3 we have Blunderbuss. Blunderbuss essentially turns our rifle into a shotgun, and it works best at extremely close range, as its damage is decreased as it spreads out further. It does a large amount of damage and is coupled with a short cooldown, and it works well when cleaving downed opponents and for hitting thieves in Shadow Refuge. Next up we have Overcharged Shot. Overcharged Shot is an amazing skill for moving an enemy away from you, as it knocks you back and performs a launch on the enemy, launches being a more powerful version of a knockback. You can use this both defensively and offensively to get people out of points, to stop your teammates from being stomped, to knock back an enemy, to stop them from being rezzed, and much more. Overcharged Shot also cures movement impairing effects, regardless if you hit the enemy or not, making it a very powerful indeed with a very low cooldown of 15 seconds. The only drawback with the skill is that you have to hit the enemy within 400 range, so make sure you're very close, well, not very close, make sure you're close enough to the enemy before you use it. Our final skill, Jump Shot with the rifle, is a ground target leap finisher. It causes 3 stacks of vulnerability on blast off and landing, adding up to 6 stacks on 5 different targets. It's a great skill to use as a cleave due to its high damage and large AoE. It can also be used in combination with our different combo fields to get stealth, heal, and fire shield. In this section here, I will go into the traits we select and why we select them. Our basic point investment for this build is 2 in explosives, 6 in inventions, and 6 in alchemy. The main reason we do not go 2 in explosives, 4 in inventions, 6 in alchemy, and 2 in tools is that speedy kits and deployable turrets are not optimal for the build. This is mainly due to running 0 kits, and I find that deployable turrets interferes with healing turret greatly, as you have to wait for it to both land, and you also have to hit additional clicks if you don't have the smart ground target AoE thing selected as well to receive your healing, which is kind of annoying. Our selected trait spread also provides us with an excellent amount of defense and boon duration as well, which works well for the build, and also our selection of traits is very nice with no average master traits, and as well as some very powerful minor traits too on top of that. For our first minor trait we have in the build, we are given Explosive Powder Keg. This is the weakest trait I've found in the build, but even then it's still pretty great as it turns our dodges into offensive AoE power. Explosive Powder Keg is a very simple trait which drops a basic bomb at the ground when you dodge. It's a very simple and effective trait. For our first major trait in this build, we have Accelerant Pack Turrets. This trait is an amazing trait which turns all of our turrets into on-demand knockbacks. The detonation itself deals good damage coupled with a decent knockback which can be used to great effect in battle even as your heal becomes an offensive weapon if you place, overcharge it and then detonate to get the combo finisher. You'll also get the knockback and the damage too. You can also use this to knock enemies out of positions, interrupt crucial skills such as heals, and create general havoc in the battlefield. Even your turrets, if they're killed, they'll still create the knockback and the damage as well, just creating more mayhem in the battlefield. It also adds another 3000 damage to your supply crate as you have 3 knockbacks, which is just fantastic. It's a must-have trait for the build, and I definitely recommend it. Low Earth Response System is the Adept Miner skill in Inventions, which provides us with 13 seconds of regen when we reach 25% HP. It's a nice skill to have as it stops us from bleeding out when we're at low HP. Low Earth Response System does come with a 10-second internal cooldown, which means that it's basically always ready for each fight, but it won't continuously proc if you keep going above and then below and above again 25% HP. Our Adept Major trait in the Inventions line is Metal Plating. Metal Plating is an excellent trait for our build as it increases the survivability of our turrets greatly. Because our turrets can't be crit, most attacks won't deal too much damage to them, and with this trait they deal even less. Metal Plating combined with our next major trait significantly increases our turret's lifetime. As a turret build, this is a very welcome trait indeed. As turrets are very important in this build, we take this over other traits even though there are still some great selections there to choose from in the Adept Inventions pool. For our Master Miner trait in Inventions, we have Automated Medical Response. Automated Medical Response is a powerful miner trait that refreshes our healing skill when we are hit under 25% HP. Due to our high health pool and toughness, we're actually able to survive being hit when under 25% HP, allowing us to take advantage of the trait. It does have an internal cooldown of 90 seconds, so don't always count on it being there if you've already been in an extended fight where you've dropped below 25% HP. As a miner trait, we don't really have any choice over what we get in the spot, but we're lucky to get this skill as it's very powerful. Next up, we have Auto Tool Installation. Auto Tool Installation allows our turrets to repair 5% of their HP every 3 seconds. This greatly increases their survivability, especially against condition classes, as the self-healing allows the turrets to shrug off most of their direct damage from a condition build, as turrets are both immune to conditions and the normal power damage of a condition build is normally very low. This trait in combination with Metal Plating allows our turrets to have greatly increased survivability, making it a very nice choice for our build. A very great case of this is our Thumper turret. Because it has a very high HP pool, it regenerates a lot more HP per 3 seconds than our other turrets, making it a very hard turret to kill indeed when it has this trait equipped. For our Grandmaster Miner trait, we have Performance Enhancement, and no, it doesn't do that, you dirty bugger. Performance Enhancement converts 10% of our healing power to power. As we don't have much healing power in this build, and nor is there any base healing power, we don't really receive much power when we have this. But it's still a nice addition. It gives about 30 power in this build, which is, it's pretty much free if we want the Grandmaster trait, so it's acceptable. The final trait in Inventions is Rifled Turret Barrels. Rifled Turret Barrels extends the range of our turrets by 50%, allowing them to cover greater distances, and also increases their damage by 15%, making them hit harder too. As we are a turret build, this helps increase our offensive capabilities greatly and cover even larger areas decently. Overall, a very good trait to boost our offense capabilities, to complement our survivability and help round out our build to allow us to both survive long and fight off any opponents that we come across in 1vs1 fights. For our first trait in Alchemy, we have Hidden Flask. Hidden Flask is a very simple trait that grants you an Elixir B when you are struck below 75% HP. Elixir B provides you with Fury, Might, Retaliation and Swiftness, which is pretty great as it means at the start of a fight you get a nice bonus to your offensive capabilities to help weaken an enemy and gain an advantage in a one-on-one fight. Hidden Flask does have a 90-second internal cooldown, which means if you have started a fight and had it proc, don't rely on it to be up again during that fight, as most fights end before 90 seconds passes. Overall, it's a very powerful minor trait and a welcome addition to our build. Our next trait is Self-Regulating Defenses. Self-Regulating Defenses grants us an Elixir S when we are struck below 25% HP. Elixir S is pretty awesome as an elixir because it makes us evade all attacks and stun break. It has two awesome benefits, allowing us to both stomp and raise our lives without being interrupted. Because we get the stun break, it can also help us when we're being escaped being focused as well. Like most of our HP threshold traits, aside from low health response system of course, it has a 90-second internal cooldown, so don't expect it to save you twice in a fight. Having self-regulating defenses helps cover one of our weaknesses in the build in that we sacrifice our utility slots to gain the static defense structures of turrets, instead of having things like Elixir Bs and Elixir S's on their own. For our master minor trait in alchemy, we have the trait Transmute. Transmute turns one incoming condition into a boon every 15 seconds. Effectively, it's a better version of the cleanse one condition every X second skills and traits that the other classes get, as it converts when conditions are applied instead of destroying on a timed pulsive cleanse. For a minor trait, we are very lucky to have it being so powerful, and is a very welcome addition to the build as it helps us against conditioned builds, which can be a weakness to us if they do overload us directly with conditions instead of trying to kill off our turrets, I mean. Next up we have Protection Injection. Protection Injection is a simple trait that grants us protection when we are CC'd. The duration of the protection that it grants us is 4 seconds long and has a 5-second internal cooldown, which means that if we are fighting a CC heavy build, we get the added advantage of extremely high protection uptime. Overall, it's a very nice trait for us, as the usual counter to heavy CC builds of stability isn't really an option for us in this build, as we give up our utility slots for turrets instead. For the Grand Master minor trait, we have Energy Conversion Matrix. Energy Conversion Matrix grants us 1% extra damage per boon on us. It's a small amount of damage as a damage boost, but that's still great for us as we get a lot of boons from our traits. And we are also power based too, so having an extra percentage of damage increase is pretty good. It's much better than the Grand Master minor trait that we receive in Vengeance, which is definitely a plus. Last but not least, we have an awesome new Grandmaster trait, Experimental Turrets. This trait is a very nice trait which went a long way into making turret builds viable by helping eliminate the weaknesses of not having actual utilities slotted for access to boons. It affects all of our turrets, even the ones from Supply Crate, and it causes them to provide specific boons based on each turret to up to 5 allies within 600 units of the turret. For our build, this means that we get Vigor from healing turrets, 3 stacks of Might from our flame turrets, protection from our Thumper, retaliation from our rocket turret, and last but not least, swiftness from our net turret. It's a great addition to the build as it goes a long way to aiding both our team and ourselves, and we can have up to 7 turrets placed at once, providing boons at once. The turret applies these boons every 10 seconds, so keep that in mind when walking away from them, so that if you walk away from your turrets and you need to get the boons back, you can quickly duck back every 10 seconds to get the boons from them. Overall, a very nice trait and very welcome addition to the build. Well, there we have it folks, some nice CC and damage from our explosives line, some great support for our turrets in the inventions line, and some superb utility and survivability from alchemy, which is a pretty damn OP trait line to have as an engineer regardless of what build you're going for. Alright, with the traits out of the way, let's move on to the next section of video. Alright, I figure I'll throw in a bit of gameplay footage in this section of the build in action. The footage I've got here is when I was still learning the build and figuring out its weaknesses and strengths in the different game modes, but particularly I enjoyed this fight because it ended up being a very long and continuous fight against multiple classes and builds. At the start of the fight I thought there was no way we were going to win this just because of how heavily outnumbered we are, but was super surprised by the outcome. Anyway, I'll add a notation link in the to the next section if you want to move on to the rest of the vid, otherwise enjoy the video.
Holy crap! That was too funny.
hilarious. And my 3 came up, I was down. And I blasted him off a cliff.
Yeah.
Gotta be aware where you're standing.
It's seldom useful when it is, but
It's hilarious. Like, I pulled him in with my 2, interrupting his first one, and then he delayed a little bit, went to go for the second one, and then as soon as it was about to go off, my 3 went off and knocked him off the cliff, killing him.
Yeah. If they hesitate for a second, your 3 will come out in time. The stupid ones do that. They hesitate for a second, and then that's it. It gives enough time for number 2 to come up.
Yeah.
But one thing is that the engineer number 1 is really hard, so you actually have a good chance of like killing like a stray mob.
Yeah.
Me and Hot Chocolate Guy just 1v like 4. 1v4, but they keep coming back as well. Keep killing me. Just keep chain killing. Body count of like 8 or something.
They're not very good, just that they got lots of them.
I summon the power of the storm. I was in some huge trouble. Then offense.
Coming to save you guys, don't worry.
Got the leg. Has been immobilized. Healing is here. Armor in hand.
Oh my, we killed them so hard. Is the chocolate guy still?
Yeah, he's up
Yeah.
there. He can take care of himself, he's got stealth.
I could outrun a
Dolyak!
Yeah, keeps running back into his keep.
Alright, there we have it. A power-based turret engineer build that has a high amount of survivability coupled with decent damage and high crowd control capabilities, allowing it to take on most opponents easily in 1v1. The build is easy to pick up with some hidden depths of mastery allowed in the build through controlling an area and area denial. It's a pleasure to use in SPVP and even World vs. World roaming, as it's capable of taking a point of ground and easily holding it. The high amount of CC coupled with excellent consistent damage allows it to tear apart opponents easily, keeping them spending more time trying to survive than damaging you, and it also has excellent traits too. If you enjoyed the build, please favorite, click the subscribe link below, like it. If you have any comments, feedback, suggestions, or requests, just please drop them in the comments below. Once again, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.